Alright, shalom, privyet, salut tout le monde, and welcome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and continue with our debunking the pagan lies, the pagan myths, talking about the Garden of Gethsemane incident where the pagans, the neo-pagans, are accusing Jesus of being a drug-dealing, child trafficking, pedophile offender. It's insane. But we're going to go over it. We're going to debunk it. And we're also going to ask the question, was Jesus actually a carpenter or was he a builder? So we're just going to get out of the way. Was Jesus employed? Okay. And so it's a misconception. This is another example how a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. And so Jesus was probably not a carpenter, and that there's a reason why we think he was, but there's a 90% chance he wasn't. He was most likely, believe it or not, he was probably, spoiler alert, he was probably a stonemason. That was probably his job statistically. Okay, so we're gonna go through that, but we're just gonna debunk the Jesus was an unemployed drug dealing child trafficker. I can't even believe I have to make this video. All right, so we're going to do a couple things. So we're going to use this as an example too, to explain why context matters. Why when you're reading anything, I mean, it could be something in the modern world, but in the modern world, you can't really play this game. In the ancient world you can, because we have to figure out what are they actually talking about when we're doing back translations on languages nobody uses anymore. All right, so let's keep going. So the neo-pagan claim again. Christ is an unemployed child trafficking drug dealer. This has been popularized by this guy Ammon Hillman. Total nut job. I couldn't even sit through his videos. You guys can watch him if you want to. I didn't even know who this guy was until recently. And so he's been promoting this idea, and I'm going to show you how this came about. And then we're just going to destroy it, blow it out of the water, and then we're going to leave it at that. All right, so using this verse in Mark, using certain Greek words, leste, neoniskos, and syndon, that they've somehow twisted everything to turn Christ into a drug dealing child trafficker. Do you know, when it's so many bad things in a row, oh, he was this, you list 10 things, this guy, it's really, he was I could see maybe one or two, you could tell someone's lying about someone where they just throw, oh, he's all these things, come on, buddy. All right, so, was Christ unemployed, and what was his profession? And this might shock quite a lot of people, actually. So, Jesus was employed, okay? So we're going to look at the word Tekton, and that's what Jesus is called. And very interesting Greek word, and it does not mean carpenter, okay? But this is what Christ is called. It can be a carpenter, but it's the context of the verse. It's the context of the situation that is going to determine, is he a carpenter or not, or what is a tekton. And so this is a great example. This is a great exercise of killing a bunch of birds with one stone, where we're going to show how context matters. Was Christ employed? Was he a carpenter? And so this is how we're going to get this is how we're going to get the ball rolling. And this is how we're going to now jump to the next section, where we're going to go over the words in Mark 14 that the pagans are twisting, taking everything out of context to create this evil image of Christ. Now, when you corner a pagan, so right now the pagans are stating Christ is a unemployed child trafficking drug dealer, based off the words leste, neonikos, and syndon. Okay, so we're going to use tekton to lay the foundation on how you have to read ancient Greek. Okay, and how you need to study the situation, and that's how the word is going to get translated. right? And now once you corner them, and like after the pagans say they watch this video, they're just going to go to, well, he didn't exist. So Jesus will exist as long as he's the child trafficking drug dealer that doesn't have a job, the bum who's living off his parents, trafficking children and dealing drugs. He exists in that context. But the moment you prove that they watch these videos and their theory is destroyed, oh, he didn't even exist. That's where they're going to jump to. That's their tactics, okay? So Christ exists in their fantasy. But the moment you blow them out of the water, make them look stupid, they're just going to say, oh, well, he didn't even exist, okay? So then we're going to go to, this is the Greek word lestes, and this is the word that they're saying is a trafficker. And again, when we go through it and all the Greek meanings of the word, yeah, I mean, when we go to the pirates were conquering Roman cities and ransoming people. I mean, they were rebels and soldiers conquering cities. And so now when you conquer a city, when you're holding a guy ransom, when Richard the Lionheart, for instance, was taken captive during the Crusades, the King of England got captured in the Middle East, he was ransomed. It doesn't make the Muslims who captured him in battle, it doesn't make them child traffickers. They captured a very valuable prisoner that they were then able to sell back to England. And so to the English, they would be a leste. They would be like bandits, criminals, insurrectionists, people who are fighting us, who then ransomed our king to us. Okay, so in a context, a leste could be a trafficker, but not in the context that's in the Garden of Gethsemane. So we're going to go through all the different versions of this. The same thing when we come to neoniskos. This is a Greek word. Just to spoiler alert, it just means a man between the ages of 18 and 30. It's a man in his prime, okay? And you could maybe call a 15-year-old a neoniskos if he's a very developed 15-year-old and he's 6'5", he's like almost 200 centimeters. He's muscles, and he's not a normal 15-year-old. People would think, oh, that's a neoniskos. He's not, by definition, but he looks like one. And you could say a young 40-year-old, say you meet a 40-year-old, and he looks young. He might get mistaken for a neoniskos, but generally the rule is it's an 18-year-old to 30-year-old, okay? So we're going to cover that word. Now they're going to say that this is a child. This is a child. It's okay. Sindon, they're going to play the same game here, and we're going to cover. This is a good one. Okay, just means linen. Spoiler alert. Okay, but we're going to go to Tekton. That's where we're going to start. But let's do a quick exercise on why context is key. So let's start by asking a question. I'm just going to ask you guys a question. Where are the seals? Okay, I want you to think about what I'm asking here. Where are the seals? Now, imagine this is like life or death situation. You don't answer right, you're dead. There's no way for you guys to know what I'm talking about. Where are the seals? Okay, let's pretend we're at SeaWorld. And I ask, where are the seals? What do you think the context, what do you think I'm asking for? I'm asking, where are the seals? Now we're at SeaWorld. The odds that I'm talking about any other kind of seal, other than a seal mammal that's going to be at SeaWorld, okay, there is a 95% chance, 99% chance that I am talking about an actual animal, mammal, seal, okay? What if we're in a courthouse or a notary or in a government building and I say, where are the seals? Well, maybe we need to seal a document. Maybe, do you think that if I'm in a courthouse getting papers stamped and the guy says, where are the seals? Do you think he's talking about the mammals, the creatures at SeaWorld? So let's go one more. We're now on an army base in the middle of Afghanistan or Iraq where there are no seals, And amongst all these special forces units, someone says, where are the SEALs? Are you going to think that, oh, they must be talking about the SEALs at SeaWorld or the SEALs at the court office? No. Chances are that if you're in Iraq or Afghanistan on a special forces operation attached to Navy SEALs, and the commander asks, where are the SEALs? Chances are the SEALs are the special forces soldiers. So you can ask a question, where are the SEALs? And you have no idea what I'm talking about, but the context, where it's happening, is going to give you a good clue of what I'm talking about. Now we're going to do one more example. And this, I apologize for using the example that I'm about to use, but I have to because this is going to branch into the drug dealing. Okay, so if I were to say, where is the coke? Where's the coke, guys? Well, if we were on a steamship, or say working on a gas chamber, where is the coke? What are you going to think of if we're a bunch of guys working on a steam engine or working at a crematorium, and we need to know, like, where's the coke? Where does your brain go? How about if you're at a diner and you ordered a Coke and you're like, hey, where's the Coke? Where's my Coke? You think they're talking about being on a steamship? Like they're talking about coal burning? No, it's the context. The environment is going to tell you they're probably that it's Coca-Cola, right? Now, if there's a drug bust going on and a guy's getting arrested and the cop's like, where's the Coke? Do you think they're talking about Coca-Cola? Do you think they're talking about steamship coal for fires? Now, so the reason I'm bringing this up is because what the pagans are doing is they read in a book, in a medical terminology from a medical book over here, that one of these words, I think it might have been sindon, the bandage, the linen, was laced with pharmakia, with some kind of drug. And so because they're reading a medical book where this bandage, this linen, was laced with some kind of ancient drug, therefore, in that story, when that guy had the robes on him, the sindon, the linen, because in this medical book over here, the bandages had the linen there were laced with drugs, therefore in Christ's story over here, it must be drugs. So what they're doing is they're taking this story and now they're applying it to the diner. So say in 100 years from now, you're going to have guys like these pagans, guys like Ammon Hillman, and they're going to be reading maybe 200 years, say 2,000 years. They're going to be reading about our lives today. And they're going to be reading about a father and a family at a diner who said, can I get a round of Coke for my family? Can we get some Coke here? These pagans and the Ammon Hillmans are going to use that example to say, do you guys see? It was totally normal in 21st century, 20th century America and Europe for families to go to restaurants and order cocaine. And the whole family would be snorting cocaine. We have it here. The father right here ordered Coke. He was at a restaurant, guys, and he ordered Coke. Because over here, when this guy was getting arrested, in this story, we read that he was arrested for having Coke. So what they're doing is they're not reading the context of the situation. They're taking two completely different things and they're mixing them together when they have two completely different meanings. In the diner, they're asking for cola. They're asking for a Coke, a slang term for Coca-Cola. In the drug bust, it's cocaine, right? So that's what they're doing. So I hope that makes sense to you guys, that that's the trick that they're doing. And that when you're reading these ancient texts, just read the context, and the context will tell you absolutely everything that's going on. Now, when it doesn't specify something, okay, we'll see. We'll see with some examples here. So let's just go over in this video the word Tekton, okay? All right, so Christ's profession, Christ the master builder. Now, Tekton here in the Greek, this is the biblical dictionary, the Strong's Concordance. Now, just because something's written in the Strong's Concordance, that does not mean that's the word. It's telling you that that's the word and that's the definition from the Greek and the minds of the King James translators. So they're going to have here an artificer, which is what it is, a guy who fabricates, produces something, a crafter. And now it says here specifically a craftsman in wood. That's not true. That is true for the time. That is true for when the King James Bible was written. When the King James Bible was written, okay, let's see what it says. So in Mark it says, "Is this not the Tekton, the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, and Joseph and of Judah and Simon, and are not his sisters here with us?" And they were offended at him. So the guys are kind of, who's this Tekton, this builder, this carpenter, talking to us, addressing us? They're offended. This is the whole, you're never a prophet in your own home, okay? The people you grow up with generally will never respect you. So why is it carpenter? And the reason is in 1600s England, Britain, when the King James Bible was being translated, the average Tekton, the average craftsman was actually a carpenter. Wood production was huge. Most houses were made of wood. They had an abundance of wood. So because in the English mind, carpenters were everywhere, it was a big profession when this book was being written by them. In their heads, that's what a crafter was. A craftsman was a carpenter, okay? So if the King James Bible was translated in Jerusalem, where houses are made of stone, Christ probably would have been a stonemason. Okay, they wouldn't have thought craftsman and equated that with carpenter, because wood is very scarce in Israel, in the Levant. Okay, especially during the first century. By that time, the forest everything had been deforested. There's virtually no forest left in that region. All right, so that's, understand that. Now, to prove the point, let's go through. Let's look at some context so we understand what we're talking about. Okay, so we're gonna look at Plato here, a dialogue with Socrates, where Socrates is having a dialogue here, and he's trying to prove to Hermogenes that names are also a tool. That just like a drill, or in this context, okay, Socrates is going to mention a tool, okay? Whose work will the weaver use well when he uses the shuttle? It's very specific here, okay? So in this dialogue, the translator is forced to use the word carpenter only because Socrates explicitly mentions a shuttle, a carcass, a specific wooden weaving tool, okay? So the reason now you can translate the word Tekton here, okay, it just says Tekton, is because the context of the tool mentioned, talking about wood, talking about a carpenter's tool, the Tekton here is a carpenter. So now the translator actually has permission to go ahead and say, well, this is a carpenter because of the context. Okay. I'm going to post up the sources, okay, always, so you guys can see it. And then I'm also going to post screenshots, because I'm having a lot of problems actually. Sources are not matching, and I'm guilty of like once or twice misquoting something. So from now on, I'm always going to try to take screenshots of what I'm quoting. It's more for my protection in the future, because I genuinely, I want to be honest in my research, and sometimes quotes are made up, people fabricate things, and then you get caught. You might accidentally quote a quote that doesn't exist, and so from now on, I'm going to try to always take screenshots of my quotes, okay? All right, so let's look at Hesiod and his context. So now, when we're reading the Greek, Hesiod here, and potter is angry with potter, and builder with builder, and beggar with begrudges beggar, and poet with poet, okay? So what's happening here in this story, actually, let me just explain the story, I guess. So Hesiod is having problems, I think it's with his brother in this story. Yeah, I think it's with his brother. And now Hesiod would have been living in probably the 700s BC, so like the 8th century BC. If you guys don't know who Hesiod is, he's a great Greek poet. He lived just after Homer, and we pretty much owe the main Greek version of Greek mythology. The main Greek, Hercules was the son of Zeus, and yeah, all the lineage of Zeus was the brother of Demeter, stuff like this. The main branch of it comes from Hesiod. Okay, so we owe Hesiod the mainstream view of the Greek gods between Hesiod and Homer, and then later you're going to have the Orphic tradition, which changes things, and that's more of an elitist school. But so Hesiod would have lived in about the 700s BC. And he's having an argument with his brother, and I think in this specific argument, he's trying to explain to his brother that there's good chaos and bad chaos. There's like good anger and bad anger. And that sometimes, like, if you were to sue your brother over something, you can resolve yourselves, and you're going to go spend all this money in court, get angry with each other, and it's fruitless. You guys could have just solved the problem yourselves. Why did you have to spend money on hiring legal professionals, paying them, paying the courts, paying the judges? Now you've lost half your inheritance to a bunch of idiots, when had you had just solved the problem yourselves, right? This is bad chaos in the eyes of Hesiod. And good chaos, good anger, good negative energy would be like two builders competing. That's what he's saying, potter is angry with potter and builder with builder, that this guy built an amazing barn, or this guy built an amazing building and sold it for this much, and then which now angered this builder, so he's going to work harder now. He's angry and jealous at the one builder, or the one poet. This guy composed an amazing poem, and I hate him. I'm angry. I'm now going to take that anger and do something positive with it. Or a girl, someone breaks up with you, and instead of being depressed about it, you go to the gym, you go to school, you work on your health, you work on your fitness, you work on your profession, and you put your ex out of the way. This is good anger. This is good hatred. This is when something can fuel you now to do something good. So anyways, that's what Hesiod is, I think, talking about here. Building with builder. Tekton is the word he's using. Okay? Now, we have no idea what tekton he's using. Okay? So Hesiod, so how is it translated? Look at the translation. Builder. Not carpenter, builder. Okay, so Hesiod mentions the tekton without linking him to a specific material. No wood, no stone. So because there is no context, okay, no clue, forcing the translators to say carpenter, they utilize the true literal definition, builder. Okay, this proves that when the word stands alone, as it does in the Gospels, it should simply be translated as builder. All right, so let's move on to the next example. Okay, so Aeschylus. Now, this is actually a really interesting guy. So we're going to go over what he said, and if you don't know who Aeschylus is, he's actually a rather amazing guy. He's one of the original Greek playwrights. So I think it was him. The Persians, the oldest I think it was Aeschylus who made the play The Persians. I think it's the oldest Greek playwright. And the reason is this guy is amazing because he was a Greek from, I think he was born in a small city just outside of Athens, but he was considered an Athenian. He fought in both the Battle of Marathon and the Battle of Salamis. So if you guys don't know the importance of these two battles, Marathon, where we get the marathon race today, which sparked the Greco-Persian Wars, the Battle of the 300 and all that. So he probably would have been a really young man, a Neoniskos at Marathon, and then later, maybe 15 years later, I think about 10, 15 years later, he would have fought at Salamis. And that was the determining, after the Spartans lost at Thermopylae, the Greeks won the Battle of Salamis. And so this guy, Aeschylus, was actually a soldier in these two pivotal battles, which makes him a rather amazing, he must have lived quite the life. So he's very interesting guy. So he's a playwright. But now in this passage, look at how the word tecton is used by him. The Lord and Father himself, with his own hand, the great, wise, ancient artificer, Tekton, of my race, the builder of my race, talking about the all-resourceful one, Zeus. So giving praise to his Greek god, Zeus, calling him a Tekton. No one would ever think that Zeus is a carpenter working with wood, because they're using the word tecton. Okay? So do you see where we're going with this? Context is everything. Okay? So let's move on to, now we're going to look at a biblical example from the Bible. So we're going to look at 1 Samuel 13:19. And notice you're going to have two words together. Tekton, okay? Tekton with the word siduru. And what's going to happen now? So now in this verse, now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel. Now how do we know it's smith? Because the next word here is the word iron, okay? And so tecton of iron. Well, the King James translators, not that they use the Greek to translate it, but if the King James translators were looking at this in Greek, they were using a Hebrew, they were using a manuscript based off the Masoretic. I don't even think they were using a Masoretic. I think they were using the Daniel Baumberg translation. But had they, you can now take these two Greek words. The context is he's a builder, an artificer, a craftsman of iron. Therefore, you would translate that as smith. That's how you're now going to translate this word. Okay, so in this verse, the Greek text specifically reads tekton siduru, literally builder of iron. The English translators correctly translate this combination as smith. Okay, so this proves the rule. To limit a tekton to a specific trade, the writer must list the material. Only then can you know for sure what a tekton is. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so tekton of iron, tekton of wood, tekton alone, master builder. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. Okay, so since the Gospels call Jesus a tekton with no material listed, we cannot limit him to wood. He is the master builder. All right, so let's look at Isaiah, artificer, crafter. Again, in Isaiah, has not the artificer, okay, the crafter, made the image, or the goldsmith having melted gold? Okay, so in this verse, the Septuagint uses the word tekton to describe someone making a graven image in the context of melting gold. So this proves that in the Bible itself, the Greek Old Testament, tekton is not limited to wood. It is used here for the high-level artisan working with molds and precious metals. So if the gospel writers meant woodcutter, they would have specified it by using tekton. They would have specified it by using tekton alone. They are just calling Jesus a crafter, a builder, an artificer. That's it. All right. So if we were to apply this in a modern way, if we were all still speaking ancient Greek today, we can call a guy in a wood shop, if you were to say, my friend's a Tekton, and you point at the guy working in the wood shop, your brain would register carpenter right into modern English. If you were to, a computer shop, my buddy's a Tekton, he builds computers, he fixes computer parts, he welds circuit boards, he does all this stuff, he knows how to make all this stuff and put it all together and make a computer. You'd call that guy a Tekton, okay? A guy putting a car together, welding, making parts, putting pieces together, nuts and bolts, all that stuff, Tekton. All right? Now, so if all these things are Tektons, and then when we come back to Christ the Master Builder, is not this the builder? Now I put Mason here, stonemason, not Freemason, stonemason. Because the houses in that region, the buildings in those regions in Jerusalem, they're not made of wood. Maybe the roofs are finished with wood. But the vast majority of trade workers in Jerusalem at that time, or in Galilee, in Judea, in Samaria, in Canaan, in Syria, they were stonemasons. They weren't carpenters. It's not like England, abundant forests, woods, all that stuff. You're talking about a region that is virtually depleted, deforested. The cedars of Lebanon at this point were reduced to nothing, okay? So wood was super expensive and super scarce. It's not to say they didn't have it, but I would say that for every wood carpenter in that region, there were probably 10 to 20, maybe 50 stonemasons, because that's what they worked with. Go look at the buildings, look at the walls, look at all that stuff. They were stonemasons. So to say that, is this not the Tekton, the son of Mary? No, there is zero context anywhere in the New Testament to tell us exactly what Jesus did. So where I'm not trying to say, he wasn't a carpenter, I'm saying we don't know. Let's be honest with what the text says. Maybe he was. But I would say there's a 5-10% chance he was actually a woodworker, and there's a much higher chance that he worked with stones, or that he was some kind of crafter. Could have been anything, could have been a glass craft. I don't know. I think stones. I personally believe the chances are Christ was a stonemason. All right. I think that's about it. So that is the word Tekton. That is how context matters. In the context of Christ, we have no idea what kind of builder he was, what kind of workman he was. And you could also be a poet, a guy who constructs poems and poetry. There are Greek sources that I've found, that I've read, I should have actually used them, where an artist who crafts a poem is considered, or a musical song is considered a Tekton. Okay, a builder, a crafter, an artist. It's no different than we'd call a music artist an artist, okay? An artist can be a guy who makes a song, makes a poem, paints a painting, okay? Makes a very unique car, or even if like a computer nerd that builds the ultimate computer, and some guy's just like, oh, he's an artist. Like, this isn't a normal computer. It's an art. This is art. You can call it for anything. Okay, so it's an artificer. Okay, it's a builder. Okay, so that's Tekton. I hope you understand now. We're gonna move into the word lestes next, and we're gonna go through Mark 14 and show the game that the pagans are playing. And I hope this video explains that context matters. Okay, where's the Coke? Okay, where are the seals? Okay, Tekton, what are you talking about? All right, so I hope that made sense to you guys, and hope that doesn't really answer the question, was Jesus a carpenter or a builder? We don't know. That's the answer. Okay, chances are he was a stonemason, not a woodworker. I mean, he very well could have been. We just don't know. There's no context to tell us, and that's why context is important. All right? I have to do this. Thank you guys. I have to thank everybody who donates and supports me, keeps me going, keeps me alive. There are alternative platforms in the event I lose this channel. You can find me on Telegram, Twitter, Instagram, and Odysee. I'm not really uploading to Odysee at the moment. I should be, and I do have a Rumble account too. I just don't use it. So anyways, guys, I think we're going to stop there. So we're going to then move to the word lestes, Nea Niskos, and Sindon, and we're going to smash this argument. We're going to end it. And the lie has gone halfway around the world, so let the truth put on its shoes. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys are well.